Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Friday. We made it. We got through another week. Welcome to Happy Hour. Happy Hour is a stream that I do Fridays on my second YouTube channel, Actively Unwoke, and also on Odyssey and Rockfin and Rumble and Gitter. I only have one location on all those platforms because you don't need two channels on old tech platforms. It's enough work just to get people to go back over to one. But I do it on my second YouTube channel because sometimes it's nice to be able to spread the wealth. Actively Unwoke is going to be becoming a much more I'm going to be putting more content on Actively Unwoke as we move into the new year. I've got lots of well, we're already in the new year, I guess. So what I mean, I cannot hang on. Can we just talk about the fact that it's April for a second? We are in the new we've just started a new solar year though in the sign of Aries. And what I mean with Actively Unwoke is I have this here book coming out called Actively Unwoke. There's a reason this YouTube channel is named the same as my book. The book came first, the YouTube channel came second, and that is going to be coming out. Well, we thought it was going to be coming out on April 26th, and I literally just like 15 minutes ago heard from my publisher that it's getting pushed back 2 weeks to May 10th because of supply chain issues at the printers and staff shortages at the printers and all of these new things. So I will be doing more content on my second YouTube channel, Actively Unwoke, as the book comes out, as we are gearing up for that. Sadly, it looks like it's going to be coming out on May 10th now, but I know no, this is not an April Fool. This is not an April Fool's joke. This is legit. There are supply chain issues and staffing shortages at the printers, and it's just the way it goes. But guys, we always have to assume that when things happen that are not necessarily what we anticipate, that it's working out in our best possible interest, our best possible good. So, it is what it is. Ain't nothing we can do about it. So we may as well just relax right into it and go with it. Well, Actively Unwoke is the ultimate guide for fighting back against woke insanity in your life. It is filled with case studies and tips and tricks and all these things that will help you fight your most evil woke nemesis. And that's really what Happy Hour is all about. Happy Hour is a time where we come together, we watch a woke training from start to finish, we let them say what they want to say, and we critique the ever-loving hell out of it on a Friday afternoon while drinking some drinks and enjoying the good company of our friends. We've got a doozy of a presentation today. I picked this presentation partially because it's a relatively new presentation. It was given at the beginning of March. So less than 2 months, less than a month old. Less than a month old. And it was given in Burlington, Vermont, which I used to live about an hour south of Burlington. Sticks, Hex, and Hammer went to UVM, where Burlington is. He can tell you all about it. But this is a presentation from the Burlington School District, an equity workshop called Let's Talk About Whiteness. Now, I was under the impression from watching the woke media that critical race theory wasn't taught in schools. But yet, this is a presentation on the YouTube channel of the Burlington, Vermont School District. Let's take a look. Why is it important to discuss whiteness in anti-racism work? What are white privilege, white fragility, white supremacy organizational culture, and how do they show up in schools? Why is it important for white people to be able to do the work to dismantle the systems and eradicate racism? Facilitated by Burlington School District's equity instructional leader. So let's just let this sink in for a second. The school district in Burlington, Vermont, on their YouTube channel is telling you they have an equity instructional leader. What could possibly go wrong? They're going to be doing a facilitation. We have a Google Doc associated with this. We have a link to the presentation associated with this. I'm just going to pop this URL in the YouTube chat. And so if you guys want to go and look at some of these documents that they have in the it is also in the description for people who might be watching it later. If you want to go look at some of these here documents, that'll be pretty great. They also have a whole equity workshop series. Let's click into this for a second. Look at this. Equity community workshops. They've got Let's Talk About Diversity and Advocacy. They've got this one here that we're going to be watching. They've got, holy shit. I didn't even look at this page before this stream started, obviously. They've got the fucking gender unicorn. Do you guys remember the gender unicorn? The gender unicorn is crazy. And apparently the school district in Burlington, Vermont is having a serious conversation in which we might have, you know what, guys? Listen, this presentation is relatively short. It's only 40 minutes. Usually we're doing presentations over an hour, hour and a half. We might have to go in for round 2 today. They did a gender identity and expression workshop too. Okay, who in the chat would be up for watching 2 presentations today? We can watch them both. We can watch the whiteness one, and then we can go right into gender identity and expression. Let me know if you are up for that idea. I'm just going to pop this up just in case we decide to, we can do that. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be watching some woke training from the Burlington School District, but we try to make happy hour fun on this channel. So one of the things I want you to do right now is I want you to download your Unwoke bingo card. That should be in the description below on whatever platform you're watching on, whether that be YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, or Rumble on Gitter. I'm sorry, guys. If you're watching on Gitter and you want the bingo card, you're going to have to come to YouTube and get it. How the bingo card works is you generate your card. All the cards are unique. You get your free space in the middle. And then we're going for lines or we're going for corners. If you end up getting a bingo based on the words used in this particular presentation, shout out bingo in the chat. You don't win anything, but we will all congratulate you and celebrate you for but a brief moment in amongst this woke insanity. And once we get one bingo, we're going for blackout bingo. Now, because there might be 2 presentations on the docket today, this could be a really good day for blackout bingo. We have yet to get a blackout bingo. I'm excited about it. I think it could happen today. And what you guys need to know too is I will make up new rules with bingo. I will just make them up. So one of the rules that is a standard rule on this channel is if Chris Rufo gets mentioned in the presentation, then you get a free bingo square. And I might make up other rules on the fly just to make it easier or just because I might feel inclined. But make sure you download your Unwoke bingo card. A great way to keep to be, make sure you're paying attention during the presentation. But if you appreciate the work I do in sussing out these presentations for you guys and hosting these happy hours and in critiquing all this stuff, the very best thing you can do to help me out is to become a supporter in my locals community. When you become a supporter in locals, you not only keep me on the interwebs, because I hate to break the news to you guys, YouTube don't pay my bills. It doesn't. It doesn't. I do need your extra help in order to be able to continue to spend my time doing this, to continue to justify spending my time doing this. Of course, I think it's important, but I also need to be able to pay my mortgage, as it turns out. So if you want to help me out with that and get access to a wide variety of exclusive perks, you want to become a member in my locals. Now, I do have a challenge going on in my locals. I would really like to bring in 100 new supporters by my birthday, which is April 12th. We now have less than 2 weeks, but I believe in you guys. I know you can do it. You can join my locals today at kb.locals.com/support for $5 a month. You can join for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift, which of course I greatly appreciate. When you become a member of my locals, you get access to 2 Zoom calls with me every single week. We do them on Mondays at 7 p.m. and Wednesdays at noon. You get access, and these Zoom calls are completely unrecorded. They are our safe space to talk about whatever we want to talk about. And sometimes I dish the dirt and the gossip, and sometimes I listen to you guys dishing the dirt and the gossip, and they're really fun and amazing. We also do book club in my community. We do craft and bitches, and we even have a supporter-only Discord that's really, kind of starting to pick up. So that's all the stuff you're going to get access to. And of course, the best community on locals. I may not have the biggest community, but I do absolutely believe that I have the best community on all of locals. So you can join us at kb.locals.com/support. No, I already turned the big 4-0. I already did. I'm already over that particular hump. But I don't look it, so I don't really care. Got my new tattoo. You guys are commenting. Here, let me show you guys if you didn't see my new tattoo yesterday. I just got more work done on it yesterday. It's looking pretty. It's oozing right now. It's a little gross, but we got more of that moon done. And then, hang on. He did the back of the arm yesterday. Doesn't that look sick, though? Oh, I love it so much. The more I've looked at the back of the arm with all that space dust floating around, the more I love it. I've got one more session on the tattoo for right now. What's the Discord server, Caleb? You're going to have to join my locals in order to get access to the Discord server, my friend. It's for supporters only. That's how it rolls. All right, guys, before we bring up the presentation, we have one more order of business, and that is that I need to pour myself a beer. Now, I have 3 beers as options for today. I already have an idea of which one I'm going to start with, so don't get any ideas, but I do want to show you guys what I have. I have this one. This is from Perry Artisan Ales. It is called Yugata Horchata. I love horchata. Horchata is like the best thing in the world. I also have this one. I bought this one basically because of the bottle. It's called Sunday Service. Look at this. Look at this. It's the Last Supper in Simpsons cartoon form on a beer bottle. And this is a Sunday beer. This is a hot fudge sundae inspired bourbon barrel aged imperial stout with fudge, chocolate, vanilla, sprinkles, peanuts, and cherries. How cool is that? How cool. Sean, if you're going to give me a compliment by saying I'm under 40, you could have said that you thought I was like 35. Or even better, you could have said that I was 29. Those were options. I thought we were friends. What happened? Why do you hate me? All right, and the last one, which is what I think I want to start with, and I'm sorry if you guys have feelings about it. I know Sunday service sounds amazing, but I want to start with the Colossal. You guys know that I'm a sucker for a good peanut butter stout. And this might be the best. Look at that elephant. How great is that bottle? A Colossal Imperial peanut butter stout brewed with peanuts, cacao, lactose, coffee, molasses, and Madagascar vanilla bean. That is where we're starting at today, guys. So let me just open this up. I have so much stuff on my desk that I'm like navigating around right now. Oh my God, my office is going to get clean this weekend. Look at my bottle opener. If you've never seen this, this is a very special bottle opener that I got in Seattle at the public market. This is years before the Chaz, when the Chaz was just a twinkle in Seattle's eye. But check out this bottle opener. This blacksmith, made this bottle opener out of a railroad spike. How cool is that? It's like the heaviest thing in the world. Best bottle opener in the world. All right. Let's get us some beer. Some Imperial Stout. Oh, you can tell just from like the look of the foam that this is going to be a good one. All right. Let me see. This is deeply alcoholic. I can smell the alcohol from here. Oh no! Oh no, you're right, Sean. I'm a Republican infiltrator because there's an elephant on the beer bottle. Oh no, the Faketarians are going to be having a ball. Oh no. That is delightful. It is. It tastes more like coffee than peanut butter, but it is delightful. All right, cheers, guys. If you are ready to get started with our happy hour for today, let me know in the chat. I'm just checking in, making sure everyone's doing good on Odyssey, on Rockfin, on Rumble, even on Getter. Looks like everyone's good to go. Let's get this happy hour started. I'm going to just get my sound set up here. Chrome tab. There we go. Share audio. All right. Let the misery begin, guys. I hope you've all got yourself a drink. Mount that like button as we're getting started. Let's do it.
This is the Let's Talk About series sponsored by the Office of Equity. And the theme for tonight is Let's Talk About Whiteness. We're going to explore white racial identity. And I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Autumn Bangura, and I'm the Burlington School District Equity Instructional Leader. And I'll pass to my co-facilitator, Virginia.
Hi, my name is Virginia Litchfield. I'm the Youth and Family Restorative Liaison that works at the Burlington Community Justice Center, but I'm based in the Burlington School District.
Thanks. And if I could also give Sparks and Jay a moment to introduce themselves because they're both on the call.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sparks. I am the Director of Equity for the district, and thank you, Autumn and Virginia, for this series, this part of our workshop series.
So now we know that not only does the Burlington Vermont School District have an equity instructional designer, they also have a director of equity, which probably means they have even more equity employees than that. What does it say? I think the Burlington School District services like 2,000 students or something like that. What did they say? 4,000 students. Burlington School District is a pre-K through 12 public school system of about 4,000 students in Burlington, Vermont. They have an entire equity team serving 4,000 students.
And I'll pass it to Jay.
Thanks, Sparks. My name is Jay Lawson. I'm the Hazing, Harassment, and Bullying Investigations Coordinator for the district. And
Wait. They have a hazings, harassment, and some. What else did he say? Hazings, harassment, and what?
Pass it to Jay.
Thanks, Sparks. My name is Jay Lawson. I'm the Hazing, Harassment, and Bullying Investigations Coordinator for the district.
I don't know what that third one was, but like, is it common for school districts to have a hazing and harassment coordinator? I'm being serious. I've literally never heard of that before. How much hazing and harassment is going on in the Burlington, Vermont School District that they have an entire hazings and harassment coordinator?
And thank you for all being here tonight. Back to you, Autumn.
All right. And also we have some student panelists on the call.
Oh, good. Students.
So DJ, Harper, or Sophie, I don't know if you are together.
That was precisely what I was
unmute
hoping
and
for.
Introduce yourself. That'd be awesome.
Hi, I'm Harper.
I'm Sophie.
Oh my
I'm
God.
Lucy.
We also have Lucy.
Great. Thanks for being here
Are
tonight.
those someone's kids?
Delia.
Hi, Delia.
Hang on.
So
How many children did they have watching a workshop about whiteness? I thought critical race theory wasn't taught in K through 12 schools. Why do those children, those did not sound like teenagers to me. One of them did. One of them sounded extremely young. Why do they have children watching a workshop about dismantling their inherent whiteness when you're also telling us that critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 schools? AD said, do these people know if they teach this essentialism, it violates Title VI of the Civil Rights Act? No, they do not know that, AD. Or they don't care. Either answer is really acceptable.
we're going to just launch into the content, and just to let you know, the format of this meeting is to just go over some concepts about white racial identity and have some of the student panelists chime in with their thoughts and answers to some of the questions.
So not only do they have students on the panel, but these students in the Burlington, Vermont School District, a public school district, are going to be teaching the adults how to dismantle their inherent whiteness. This presentation is already going to go much better than I even remotely anticipated. And remember, this presentation was done less than a month ago. This is brand new.
And then the second part of the hour that we're together, we're going to engage in a restorative circle.
Color
and
blindness
have
is
some dialogue.
harmful. Holy shit.
These
Hang on.
equity workshops.
Hang on. Look at this slide. It says, what? Because they never read the terms on the slide. Maybe she will, but she says, whiteness, like all racial identities, is a social construct. Whiteness is normalized. White people are often not made aware of their race. Well, I think that's kind of hard to do nowadays. Whiteness helps us to understanding whiteness helps us to dismantle racism. And the last bullet point is color blindness is harmful. These people really think that if you treat people without respect to their race, you are engaging in violence. I wonder if that violates the NAP. I wonder if Sean, does color blindness violate the non-aggression principle? I don't know. You've been a libertarian longer than me.
Are meant to be interactive, so at any time feel free to use the chat and chime in responses to the material, the content. If questions come up or you want to answer some of the questions that are on the screen, you can use the chat, and you'll certainly have a chance to participate at the end in the circle. So for the first part, we're just going to go over why it's important to talk about white racial identity. This is somewhat of a new concept because whiteness
No.
is often normalized
Wrong.
and ignored as when we think of racial identities. And like all racial identities, whiteness is a social construct, meaning that there is no biology or science to determine races. If we all tore off our hair and skin, we would all be genetically the same.
Then why is color blindness bad? Then why is color... If whiteness is a social construct and there is no biology that determines our race, which I think we can all just like acknowledge is just an overtly false statement. Of course biology determines your race. But let's just say let's just push past that for a second. If all of that what she just said is true, then why is color blindness bad? If it's true that if you just take off our skin and we all look the same underneath, then why is color blindness considered to be bad?
So racial identity is socially constructed. And I'll pass to Virginia about the next bullet point.
Yeah, understanding whiteness is a part of what we need to do in order to dismantle racism. Whiteness is holding white people back. I think oftentimes when people think about white people's role in anti-racism work, they think about it from a lens that feels a little white savory, that we're doing this for the Black people in our lives or for the people of color in our lives. But really, this is a piece that we need to do to understand ourselves and to understand our racial identity and separate that from our ethnicity, because often white people really confuse the term ethnicity and racial identity.
So now these people are literally advocating for a white racial identity. What other groups might advocate for a white racial identity? What other groups might think that it is a great idea to explore and understand a white racial identity? I'm just going to give you guys a second to chat in some guesses about that. I certainly have my opinions, which I will share after you share yours. AD says, do Italians count as whiteness? The top 8 groups in the U.S. by income are non-white groups. AD, none of that matters. None of that matters at all. But thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Yeah. I'm gonna say that Deborah is hitting the nail on the head here. I guess that they don't see themselves aligned with the KKK. Diane B says the KKK. Grandma Nay says Supremes. Yep, white supremacists, white identitarians, KKK, yes, all of those groups, these are all correct answers. I think that all of those groups would also support the establishment of a white racial identity and programs like this in which you bring white people together to help understand your whiteness and embrace your white racial identity. Are you fucking kidding me? These people are insane. No, I take that back. These people are not insane. These people are racists. This is what racism looks like. This is literal racism being perpetrated by the Burlington, Vermont School District.
And it's really important to note that color blindness is harmful. And color blindness is when you just say that you don't see color, except the reality of it is
that's not actually what that is.
But we do notice differences in humans. It is a very natural tendency to kind of sort people by characteristics. And we want to avoid colorblindness because colorblindness will negate the effects of racism. And the effects of racism are very real. So we want to make sure we avoid that, and unpacking whiteness is part of that.
And I'll just chime in to say that third bullet about like white people are often not made aware of their race. I like to share this anecdote of story that when I'm in classrooms talking with students and I'm asking them to name different racial identities and they're looking around, they're quick to say Black or African American or Asian, but they often leave out white. as a racial identity. They don't even mention it. And so I think it's really productive to be aware of your own race and to have discussions about it. And I'll share this quote. "We live in a society where default whiteness goes unremarked. No one ever asks it for its passport," from Juno Diaz.
And I'll read the second quote that's on here. "The positive sense of whiteness is knowing that you're working towards something bigger. By explaining your whiteness and by working to dismantle racist institutions, you're working toward equity." And that's Melissa Katz, who's the author of Teaching While White.
So one thing that's really striking to me, oh God, fucking
right,
courageous conversations. God fucking damn it. One thing that's striking to me about these people, don't they sound like they're in a cult? They always sound miserable. They always sound sad. They're always like, no one is ever excited to present these presentations. They literally do sound like they're in a cult. Whiteness is a social construct and colorblindness is bad, and we have to do the work to dismantle our inherent whiteness. That's what they sound like all the time.
So we're going to go in some terms and definitions, but before we do that, I wanted to share this moral compass from Courageous Conversations, and just kind of name that these conversations can feel a little bit uncomfortable at times, and people often kind of gravitate to one of these quadrants, whether you're moral, intellectual, social, or emotional. So just think about, like, if you respond emotionally, you're thinking about that when you're talking about a racial issue, it just kind of strikes us in this physical level, like it touches our heart, it causes an internal sensation. So you might feel anger or sadness or joy or embarrassment. So just inviting you to think about, which quadrant are you at? Do you have an emotional response? In the intellectual quadrant, our response might be to talking about a racial issue might be that we kind of personally disconnect from the subject, and we just want to like start searching and Googling and finding information and data.
Shannon says, even kids know they're in trouble if they mention white in the wrong way today. Shannon, I thought exactly the same thing. I thought exactly the same thing when she was like, white kids never talk about being white as a racial identity because they know they're going to get in trouble if they do. So they're like, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
It's often, our intellectual response is often verbal and based in our best, it's often verbal and not based in our best thinking. Morally, it's like we come from this belief that any racial information or event has to do with rightness and wrongness of a given racial issue. And the justifications for your moral views are often situations in the gut. It's not often easy to verbally articulate those. And socially,
wait, she literally just said that she doesn't have values. She literally just said that morality to her is like a gut feeling. This is the very definition of like people who put feelings ahead of facts. If you have a set of moral values that you operate from, that is more than just a gut instinct. In fact, sometimes the moral values that you're operating from will go directly counter to what your gut instinct tells you to do. So she literally just told us she doesn't have any hard and fast values that she adheres to.
You connect or respond to racial information through our doings of what is most often characterized as specific behaviors or actions. And so as we go through these, I invite you to also just think right now, if you want, where do you fall in this quadrant? And if you want to share in the chat, you can go ahead. I know personally for myself, I'd say that I fall definitely in the moral and a little bit in the emotional.
And for me, I definitely fall into the social and a little bit of the intellectual with overthinking.
That's not actually how these things work, just so you guys know. They're completely misusing that. Oh, there it is, Robin!
We wanted to shout out to these sources. These are some really great books. Me and White Supremacy by Layla F. Said. Do you want to introduce the next one, Virginia?
Yeah, the next one is So You Want to Talk About Race. And it's Ijeoma Owulo. And do you want me to do the last one?
They can't even pronounce the author's name.
The last one is White Fragility. White Fragility, and I think all of these books, if you pick them up and read them, read a chapter and take a little bit of time to chew on it, before moving into the next chapter. These are not the kind of books you can pick up and just power through cover to cover and expect to really digest the content.
I actually strongly support that suggestion. Those of you who remember back in the day when I read White Fragility in like one day, I damn near lost my fucking mind. Like reading White Fragility in a day drove me to the edge of insanity, and I'm not making that up. That is real talk. You can go back and watch the video I did when I was reading White Fragility. I lost my damn mind. So I agree. If you are going to partake of these books, and I don't recommend you do unless you're really trying to understand how effed up and crazy these people are, break it up. You don't need to do it all in a day. Read a chapter, chew on it, take some time with it, underline all the effed up things, make sure all of us know about them. But, no need to power through White Fragility in one day.
Thanks, Virginia. And I just want to give a shout out to the first book, Me and White Supremacy, as what has kind of guided the content for this particular virtual equity workshop. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. All right. Going too fast. Virginia.
The privilege rainbow. I've never seen this before. So what is this? I can barely even see it on mine. Oh, maybe we're going to take a quiz.
White privilege is something that all white people experience regardless of class or other identity factors. Our white skin affords us certain privileges. And white privilege is something that often we are taught to believe that we earn these privileges through working hard, right? Except we do work hard, and it is quite possible to work hard and earn lots of things, but that doesn't mean that your skin didn't make it easier for you. Or to say that in reverse, your skin is not the thing that is making it more difficult for you to achieve these things. Peggy McIntosh did a really great article that's a couple of decades old now, called Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack of White Privilege. And so there's a really great list of white privileges, things like on a job application, people are not going to pass over my application because they can't pronounce my name. Virginia's
You couldn't pronounce the authors of the books in your own presentation.
Pretty much everyone is socialized to be able to say and pronounce the name Virginia in our culture. And there's also, in Me and White Supremacy, there's also a really great list of these factors. But I wanted to throw this out to some of the students on the call. In what ways have you seen white privilege show up in your schools? I'm putting them on the spot a little bit.
I've seen some teachers like not yelling at white people, but maybe Black kids.
Thank you. Right, so choosing who they speak to or the tone in which they speak to them.
This is getting clipped like no one's fucking business. 10 minutes. Children talking about white privilege. But I thought critical race theory wasn't taught in K-12 schools.
Does any of the other students want to share how they've seen white privilege show up in our schools?
I feel like rules are more heavily enforced for African Americans and not like us, and not white kids.
Yep.
Oh. You muted really quick, but it sounded like there might have been a second comment there. And so I just want to leave space for it in case that person wants to share.
Like I was just saying, like the dress code is definitely more.
We certainly heard a lot of that at Summer Racial Justice Academy too. That students who are of the global majority are dress coded far more frequently than white students.
Of the global majority, did you hear that term? She said that students of the global majority are dress coded more than our white students. What? Jesus Christ.
In what ways do you hold white privilege? So this is directed for our students who are white on the call.
Yes, students, tell us how you hold white privilege.
I can give you an example.
Yes.
If I were to go
Lead
to the doctor
students
with a skin condition, the medical textbooks, chances are, have pictures of that condition on my skin. Whereas if when I took my daughter to the doctor for a skin rash because she has darker skin than I do, it took her doctor a few minutes to be able to figure out what it was.
So I just want, before we hear the students comment on their own white privilege, let's just reflect on the fact that this adult said to students, how do you experience white privilege? Or like something to that effect. How do you experience white privilege, underage students? And the students didn't answer. So then the adult was like, let me give you an example. Now let's see what the students say.
So I experience privilege in that medical textbooks look like me because I'm the default. Would any of our white students or even Autumn like to share ways that they hold white privilege?
I can share that basically I'm a trusted member of society. So if I'm going shopping, I don't get followed. If I'm driving a car, I don't feel as nervous about being pulled over by the police.
She just said that only white people are trusted members of society. And they're trying to lead the students into answering these questions. Right? Right?
And again, I want to invite anyone on the call to chime in the chat
And
as
the
we
students aren't
go
answering.
through these different questions.
Come on, students, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it.
The privilege rainbow that's on the right-hand side of this reminds us that there are lots of ways that people experience privilege. Race is not the only one. We're focusing on race today because we're talking about whiteness. And because racial privilege in the United States is significant, and I would say a driving factor for all of us.
All right, should we go to the next slide?
They did answer. The
think
kids
so.
didn't answer. That's probably a good thing. It's
Okay,
a bad thing that the kids didn't answer in that it doesn't give us a great clip, but it is a good thing from a, moral and ethical perspective that the kids were not forced to admit their white privilege. Like, that's a good thing. Let's just acknowledge it. I'm only a little disappointed for purely selfish reasons in that I would really have liked one of the children to answer so I could clip that on the internet. But admittedly, probably it's better that didn't happen from like an ethical perspective.
This one is about white fragility, and that is a term coined by Robin DiAngelo. It's a state in which even a minimum amount of racial stress becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive moves. So when we think about white fragility, it's basically a discomfort that you feel and an anxiety when someone is talking about race in the room, because maybe you're not used to it. As someone who is a white identifying person, it's not something that I've been forced to encounter, racial stress or racial tension. So the first question to consider, and we'll open it up for our student panelists and to anyone on the call can chime in the chat, is how does white fragility show up in conversations about race? Do you feel that you fight, freeze, or flee? Exercise teacher wait time.
They're not answering again. They're not answering again. Did we lose the children?
I can share an example. So white fragility shows up in conversations when I go to speak to someone about something racist that I've observed. I've been told I have to be like nice or friendly to have that message heard. And white fragility is the like, oh, wait, no, I didn't. That wasn't racist. I didn't do that. I didn't single them out for this because they were Black. It was this other factor. But it's like an immediate defensiveness that attempts to.
Well, this isn't entirely true, AD. I mean, there is certainly tone policing to it, but what Robin is really talking about when she's talking about white fragility, she's talking about herself. The book White Fragility is this is Robin DiAngelo's confession about what a racist white lady she is. That's all it is. When she is talking about fragility, she's talking about herself. She says throughout the book, I have been racist since before I have been racist since the womb, since before I took my first breath. She has a whole chapter about white women's tears, When she's saying fragility, it is about her. It's not actually about other people. It's about her.
Shut down that conversation.
And I'll share my own story. Basically, I do a lot of advocacy for talking about race and racism, particularly anti-racism in classrooms. And I see white fragility showing up a lot among white teachers who are like, wait, stop, they're not ready, or I'm not ready, or it's going to feel a certain kind of way. And I want to give space for Jay, and also thank you, Rachel, for chiming in the chat.
Thanks, Autumn. I was going to try to give some more time for the students to think about how it has been affecting them. But could you tell me, Autumn and Virginia, would those times where you automatically jump to defending a position or a statement, would that qualify under this?
Yeah, so white defensiveness is another piece of white fragility. It's really common for white people to be very defensive, right? Because the last thing any white person wants to be called is a racist. And it's really important, Rachel in the chat, like it's really, really important for us when our body is giving us that fragility or that defensiveness. It's very important for us to stay put and figure out what that's about, even if it's just from a listening standpoint. It's important for us to notice that and work through the discomfort, because Black people have to experience discomfort on a daily basis because of the color of our skin and because white people haven't unpacked our actions and how whiteness shows up in us.
And I just want to give space for the students to share. Have you seen examples of white fragility, whether in yourselves or your classmates or teachers, or where white people kind of feel stressed or uncomfortable talking about race?
Yes, children.
So there's like a lot of like teachers, like white teachers or stuff, if you bring things up, and I might do this too, I'm just not aware of it. But like if you like bring up something racist or whatever, like about a racist experience or something,
dodge the subject.
Yeah, like they dodge a subject, or they're like they start out like before they say anything, they're like, or like if they're bringing up something racist that happened, they're like, oh, but I'm not racist. Like
they're literally making this up to please the presenters.
They're
making this up to please the presenters.
Just like,
It's that strong desire to distance ourselves from the
leading,
racist so that we don't also get called racist.
The adults now leading the children
from the racism without taking the time to consider how you might have contributed to this situation.
Oh, you guys are right. That might be, I don't think that's the mom. I think that's another kid. I don't think that's the mom. That's another kid.
And just that second question, how does white fragility prevent us all from doing meaningful, purposeful anti-racist work? I
don't think
it's this comfort level. It's like, oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to talk about that. Oh, it's gonna take away from my regular content. If, for example, if there's an incident that feels like it's racially driven that happens in class, instead of using it as a teachable moment, it's like, oh, we'll talk about that later, and then it's not addressed. So I think that it's often easier and comfortable to deflect the conversation away from it.
So guys, I just want to do a quick pause, and here's hoping in the second presentation they also have children, because how great would that be? But I just want to take a quick pause and note that when there are underage people on these webinars, I just asked people in the chat, and people may be watching later that are commenting, do not attack the kids. The kids are victims in this. The kids have been brainwashed into this ideology. This is not something the kids want to be doing. It's okay to make comment on the things that they say, but we need to make sure that we're not attacking children personally, because it's a bad look. And everything in the chat, I know it seems like we're just hanging out right now, and that's intentional, but everything in the chat is public on the internet, and what I do not want is for someone to see this later and be like, look, her chat is attacking children, because the children are the victims in this. They've been brainwashed into this. And so let's just be mindful of that. Attacking ideas is one thing. Attacking kids is a whole other thing.
Okay. Ready to the next slide.
So we're going to talk a little bit about white supremacy culture. I think we still have a lot of people in our community that when we say white supremacy culture, they're picturing like the KKK or David Duke and white hoods. But really what we're talking about is how white supremacy has permeated all of culture in America. And some of the characteristics that you might recognize from white supremacy culture that show up in our schools and in our workplaces are perfectionism, right? Believing everything has to be perfect, quantity over quality. So just kind of turning things out without stopping to think whether we are turning out the best possible solutions. Worship of the written word, right? Like if it's written, then it can't be untrue. Either or thinking is also
That's
a really
not
big
actually what
piece
that
of it.
means.
So it has to be this or this, and there can't be another story. Except
So let's just
every
think
single
about this.
person
So
perceives.
this list that she's coming up with now, she's got a 2001 on this list, but I think it's actually older than that. I've seen this credited to like 1997. So these were basically 15 characteristics of what it means to be a white supremacist that a couple of grifters who did organizational training came up with, and it's all made up. There is no data behind this. I've actually looked into this extensively. I used to do videos on this list all the time, and then I just got sick of talking about it, quite frankly. But they basically say that white supremacy is about perfectionism, having a sense of urgency, quantity over quality, writing memos, thinking there is only one right way to do something, either or thinking, power. It always comes back to power, doesn't it? Fear of conflict, individualism. You'll see right here. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. Right here, there's individualism is a characteristic of white supremacy. Objectivity is a characteristic of white supremacy. The right to feel comfortable is a characteristic of white supremacy. There is no evidence at all that any of these attributes are, in fact, most of these attributes are related to more difficult work styles and more difficult communication styles. And when I say more difficult, I mean people that are not necessarily trying to please other people that can have a tone, that they can be matter of fact, that they aren't afraid of engaging in conflict, things like that. So there is no data to support that any of this has anything to do with skin color at all. I've looked into it extensively, but yet this list keeps showing up some places.
Situations differently. So if you have 10 people in the room, there may be 10 truths in the room, and all of them can be true at the same time. Individualism is another one, right? You've heard of like rugged individualism in American society. The opposite of that would be like a community of care for each other, or a strong belief in community over the individual. And there is some really great, if you're into this type of thing and you want to go online and do a little bit more research, Tima Okun, if you just Google white supremacy culture, you will find a document that breaks all of this down for you if you want more specific examples of how that might show up in your workplace or even in you. Because I think white supremacy culture is what we've been bathed in American society since we were born. And so whether we like it or not, we have internalized it, and unpacking it in ourselves and in the culture or the community right around us.
White supremacy culture is what we've been bathed in before we were born. That's Robin DiAngelo. She just basically quoted Robin DiAngelo. And just think about that for a second. These people who are in charge of equity in the Burlington, Vermont School District just told you that we have been racist and white supremacist since before we were born. Oh, gee, these are definitely people I want teaching children.
Is a really great first step in unpacking racism and dismantling it. I'm going to pose a question again to our student panelists.
Oh, good.
Which of the following characteristics do you tend to uphold in your personal and your school lives?
She just asked children what characteristics of white supremacy they uphold. Thank you, Burlington, Vermont, for being probably the wokest of all school districts on the ever-loving planet. Sam says, notice the droning, hypnotic tone. It is hypnotic. This is brainwashing. They are brainwashing people. All right, let's hear what the children have to say about what white supremacy they have upheld.
I know for me, perfectionism is a hard one. I want it to be perfect all the time. And perfect is the enemy of both good and done.
For me, it's the sense of urgency. People that know me know that I love to get things done. And sometimes the reason why that sometimes can be a negative thing is that it misses out on including voices that are important, including a bunch of stakeholders. Sometimes you need to slow down the process. And I invite anyone on this call to kind of chime in either in the chat or by unmuting to say, hey, I do that, because these are qualities that I know everyone out there somehow kind of relates to.
I'm right there with you, Autumn, with the sense of urgency.
Look at all these good
Right?
saviors.
And we have in the chat their right to comfort. There's this expectation that white people have about being comfortable, or not having to enter into conversations that feel uncomfortable without a realization of the discomfort that comes for the people of the global majority and the racism they experience every day.
So my name is George Slider. I want to mention when I was a kid in elementary school, I befriended a friend who was Black, and he lived in a neighborhood across the highway. And whenever we went to that neighborhood, there were bars on the houses, and it was kind of very different from my neighborhood. And I always thought that was really strange, and I really liked my friend, and he had a mixed race family. So I just wanted to share that with you. In that same, it was East Palo Alto, and Palo Alto is where I lived. And East Palo Alto, it was interesting because once I was in basketball, I figured, well, we're going to play East Palo Alto this one time. I thought it was great. We're going to play them. And we went to the basketball game, and the court they had was much fancier than ours. They even had the buzzers and everything in the basketball court. And I was like, wow, well, why do they have such a fancy basketball court when their neighborhood doesn't look so great? And I thought that was unusual. And of course they whipped our ass, I only scored 3 points and they got 30, so I thought that was interesting.
Thank you for sharing. I also want to point out, Kristen, in the chat, fear of open conflict. There's going to be some conflict. White people are socialized differently about race. White people are socialized to believe that racism is a very individual thing. It is that person who's yelling racial epithets or using hate speech. And Black people generally tend to be socialized that it's a system of oppression that is used to hold down people of color. And so there's going to be conflict in order for us to unpack it, because we have to reconcile those two things and how they're different and why they're different, because whiteness is supposed to be invisible. Autumn, I'm going to turn it back to you, if that's okay, for the next slide.
Sure. So the next slide is about white silence. And this is from Layla F. Said, who wrote Me and White Supremacy. White silence is exactly what it sounds like. It's when people with white privilege stay complicitly silent when it comes to issues of race and white supremacy. And I always like to share vulnerable stories. So I'm going to share a story. I was in my local supermarket and I was standing in line in the self-checkout. And I noticed one of the employees, the cashiers, go, "Did that boy just go off with the diapers?" And I looked up from my phone and there was a young Black teenager holding diapers in his hand, getting ready to go to the self-checkout. I was with a colleague who did talk to the cashier, and I did talk to the young boy, but to this day, I feel a little bit like I was too silent in that moment, because it was clearly racism to me. It was a very loud call out, thinking that that boy was stealing the diapers. His mother was probably in the car, sent him in for an errand. He was doing the right thing. I heard him kind of mutter under his breath the harm that it caused. So I'm just sharing this vulnerable story of how I have stayed silent when it comes to race and racism. And I'm going to put that towards the student. Have you stayed silent when it comes to race or racism, or do you generally speak up? And you're welcome.
She did just shame the students. She shamed the
And
students.
we've got Aubrey here, Delia, Anya, Lucy, Sophie, Harper. I'd love to hear from others. And if I've missed some of you, there's 27 on the call, so chime right in.
There's 27 students on the call.
I feel like there are times that I didn't want to stay silent, I want to say something, but I didn't really know what to say. I have social anxiety, so I'm sure there are a lot of
Oh
times
God.
not said anything, but I'm not sure if that's exactly that.
Definitely, Sophie. That's exactly that. It's uncomfortable. I'll say it right. It's also straight out that fear of open conflict. From our last slide, it is very, very uncomfortable to stand up and say something.
I gotta download this video. I gotta make sure I have it.
Conflict in a situation where you could just be like, oh, da, da, da. Others, have you stayed silent when it comes to race, or do you speak up?
I think these are skills too that as white people we don't often have, or we don't often practice them, like the skill of stepping in and saying something. And so I think all of us have those moments where we see it.
This is infuriating.
And we just don't know what to do.
Listen, we've watched a lot of and I'm responding to Stephen just chatted in. This is sickening. We've watched a lot of presentations for Happy Hour. Happy Hour has been going on for well over a year now. We have watched many of these presentations before. And you guys can remind me if you remember one. I don't remember a single presentation in which children were brought on to a public call and coerced into confessing their white fucking fragility. I am infuriated that this is going on right now. I am infuriated that this is happening. And I'm going to be really interesting to see. We're definitely doing that second presentation now. This presentation only has 12 minutes left. We might even do a third and a fourth, depending on how many they have. But if they're bringing children onto all of these presentations, that is disgusting, and that is child abuse. They are leading these children. They are coaching these children on what they need to say to be good boys and girls in a public setting. And the director of equity for the fucking school district is on this call watching this happen. This is child abuse. We are watching child abuse right in front of us. And God knows, remember, we're seeing what they're putting out publicly. God knows what they are talking about privately. We are literally listening to the indoctrination happening before our very eyes. The only point I will give them is that at least they didn't put these children on camera. But how dare they put this presentation publicly on this is on fucking YouTube. I found this morning by searching on YouTube. This is a public, it only has 32 views, more now, obviously. But this is disgusting. Yeah. Sam says elementary students lack the academics to resist. Well, they also lack the brain function to resist. The students on this call are completely defenseless. They do not have the mental acuity in order to defend themselves. It has to do with the way the brain develops. The adults should know better. The adults clearly don't.
And I'm gonna share the second question. What types of situations elicit the most white silence? I'll share for me personally, it's when it's a friend or someone you know that might say something and you're like, oh, do I have the courage to bring it up with them? You know, especially if it's like this kind of joking or something that you're like, is that bad? Should I bring that up? I think those are situations that
Do you know why I get so mad at the right? It's this stuff right here that makes me absolutely infuriated at the right. Now, you might say, Karlyn, this is the left. You should be infuriated at the left. Well, fair enough. I'm infuriated at them too. But the fact that the political right doesn't have the fortitude to fight against this shit at all, when they're we're watching it live on the internet right now. We're watching it live on the internet. This happened less than a month ago. And the fact that this doesn't piss people off, and that people on the political right are more concerned that I have a tone than they are about the fact that children are being abused live on the fucking internet right in front of us. Oh, but my tone is what matters. It is infuriating to me all around on all sides. Oh, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Well, no, this isn't actually true. You have a Republican governor. Your Vermont's governor is a Republican. Let's just be blunt. But I don't care, because it doesn't matter what state it's in. The right is lazy and feckless in every single state, and this should be infuriating. I should not be the first person to have found this presentation. This is infuriating. But no, the right is more concerned that I have a tone. It doesn't matter if he's a rhino. Don't tell me that Vermont has no Republicans when you have a Republican governor. I don't care if he's a rhino. Don't tell me you don't have Republicans when you literally have a Republican governor. There are lots of rhinos out there.
Sometimes elicit silence. Anyone else?
I feel like it's times when a lot of times there are times where like people could say something and like there wouldn't really be any repercussions, but if they're like something could like happen to them, then they're like way more likely to not say anything, even if it's something minor.
Yes, incognito, this is a great question. And parents allowing kids to be called racist. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. WTF.
I just want to elevate the chat too. Liz said in the chat, when there's a power imbalance, like if you're talking to a teacher or you're talking to your boss, and power is important, and whiteness and power generally go together.
Whiteness and power generally go together.
That is baked into the system.
Thanks. And the last question is, who benefits from white silence and whom in your life is harmed from it? I'm just going to say everyone is harmed by white silence. It doesn't just harm people of the global majority or BIPOC folks. And because racism is harmful to all.
I do just want to elevate that comment from the chat too. That sometimes, thank you, Delia, when there's when something racist is said in the hall or someone calls something out, it can be hard to say something in front of everyone. As an adult, I experience the same thing with groups of adults. When there's lots of folks around, it can be hard to say something, sometimes for fear of saying the wrong thing, sometimes for fear of how people will perceive it.
And Rachel saying the bigger the group, the harder it is to speak up. It's easier for me to speak up in a group of white people than a mixed racial group. All right, I'm going to pass to Virginia and go to the next concept we're going to talk about is tone policing.
So tone policing is a tactic that's used by those who have privilege, and it's used to shut down a conversation. by focusing on how the message was delivered.
I just want to say, I want to point out Metastep's comment in the chat. He says, Karlyn, you're right. Anyone in a brain with Vermont should stand up against this. The problem is a lack of awareness and apathy. And then he says, for me, I feel alone. Metastep, you're not alone. You're not alone. And I understand why it might feel that way, but you're not alone. There are people who agree with you. I know there are people who agree with you in Vermont. I've talked to people who agree with you in Vermont. So you're not alone. And don't feel any shame that you see this differently than other people do, because Vermont is a very woke place. But you're not alone.
Delivered, rather than what was actually said in the message. Right, as white people, often we're so offended by how the message was delivered to us that we forget to stop and consider the elements of racism that were present in our action or our comment. And I really love this slide because there are some really great examples on here. Calm down so we can discuss this like adults. This isn't the time or place for you to express your emotions. You can't speak to me in that tone. These are all examples of tone policing. And people of color get to have their feelings about racism. It is upsetting. And as white people, we've never experienced that type of upset. I'm going to throw these out to the student panelists, and anyone's welcome to join us in the chat. Have you witnessed tone policing to silence, shut down, or dismiss BIPOC people, whether they're students or adults? I have definitely seen this with students of color who are really emotional and trying to convey to a teacher something that they thought was racist. They're trying to convey their perception of the situation and having the teacher unable to really hear the message because of the strong emotions that the youth were experiencing. Trying to use teacher wait time. I'm not as practiced as Autumn is at that. I'm going to throw the second question out there. How often have you made your willingness to engage in anti-racism work conditional on people using the right tone with you?
Virginia, can we back up a minute if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think as we look at tone policing, I think it probably applies to adults a lot more. So as an example, in our district, when we have people of the global majority that may be passionate about something, they are typically viewed as angry, hostile, upset, and all kind of other verbs as we think about it, whereas it would be very different for a white person speaking the same thing and saying the same thing in a passionate voice. So we as people of the global majority are often put down for our passion and the way we tend to communicate. And it's not just tone, it's also, in a lot of times, the use of language. So I think we have to be mindful as to, again, power dynamics and how do we really lower that playing field where people of the global majority can speak to their so-called superiors and where it's heard and understood and really respected, as if I were a white person saying the same thing.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sparks. I appreciate you. Autumn, I'm gonna turn it back over to you to introduce the circles, if that's okay.
I'm so infuriated by this presentation.
Yes.
I'm so infuriated.
So we have about 28 people on the call. I'm going to put in the chat the circle template that anyone should be able to view. And I'm going to move us into breakout rooms of 3.
Oh, good. Breakout rooms.
Liz, you're on the call. I'm wondering, one of our student facilitators didn't come. If I could put you on the spot to just guide the third circle, because I think 2 groups would be too big. Thank you, Liz. Liz is our new RP elementary specialist and our YPAR guide. So I thought that would be a good choice. So for the circle, let me just see. Here we go. In this circle, we will use the circles process just to explore our own consciousness of whiteness. What does race mean to you, and when are you most conscious of your race? Are examples of some of the questions we're going to ask in this structured but brave space where non-judgment and honest self-reflection are goals. I'm going to stop sharing and give me a minute to open the breakout rooms.
I don't think we get to see the breakout rooms because it seems like we only have a couple minutes left.
And also,
but remember, stick around. We're going to watch the other one. We're definitely going to watch the fucking everyone now. My God.
I really appreciate her willingness to do that.
Okay, so
This is nuts.
hopefully everyone saw those in the chat, and we just encourage everyone to participate and lean in, but you can always just say pass and say, I'm feeling like I just want to listen right now. So no pressure. And I'm going to open the rooms now.
Oh, there they go. Does anything else happen?
I broke up the conversation in the second room. I just was closing the rooms because I want to pay attention to time. So Liz, how's it going over there? Yeah, it's only Virginia and I here if you want to finish your thought.
Oh, okay. Are we all done for the event?
Yeah, it goes from 6 to 7, so it's quick. I know we probably cut your circle short.
Yeah, we were only on the second question. Sorry.
Yeah, I had to skip one question too.
Okay. I guess I would just open it up to people if they do want to share, and if not, I would just invite you to look at the questions that are next. It was really wonderful to listen to people. Does anyone want to share, at least for that last, we were just on how has whiteness impacted your life?
I wish we could have seen the breakout sections.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please, Kathy.
Can we make these longer? Because every time we do this, I find it's way too little time to have the conversations we really should be having and have them go longer. So can we do it next time for 2 hours? I mean, I know I'm asking you guys that are working, and I'm sorry, but
we got you, Kathy. Next time we'll make it an hour and a half, okay. Not 2 hours.
Okay. Goodbye. Thank you.
That it?
Thank you, Kathy.
Oh.
I agree with Kathy wholeheartedly.
We're going to let it play to the end, just in case. Just in case, we're going to do part 2 coming up, guys.
We had to drop it like it's hot. But yeah, we really have to allow more time. And I think we should do another one of these, a part 2. Because I would like to have more people of the global majority involved in the conversation, because I have a lot to say how whiteness has impacted my life.
He wants to yell at people.
So, but yeah.
I have a lot to say, so we need to make these presentations longer. So I have a lot to say.
And thanks, Sparks, for being willing to be that voice. We were going to have an affinity space, but our student did not, who was supposed to facilitate, didn't come. So
the student didn't show up.
Well, I was in an affinity space by myself.
Good for them.
That's good.
Good for them.
Thank you all for doing this too.
All right.
Yeah.
This seems to be...
Yeah. Thanks, Liz. Thank you so much.
All right. That seems to be the end of presentation part 1, guys, but stick around. Stick around. Because that is not the only one we have. Now, I just do want to go back over. Guys, mount that like button if you thought that presentation was insane. I've got many clips that I'm going to be making after this. But we've got a little extra time. We've only got an hour. I only drank half of a beer. So we might as well watch another one. Now, let me just go back to this screen and take a look. Let me just see. Okay, so they have this whole series. They're doing PS. They're doing their next one on my birthday. Maybe we'll have to do a spy stream for that, or I could actually go and have fun on my birthday. We'll have to think about that. All right, so we just did this let's talk about whiteness one. Now what I'm thinking, let's see. Oh shit. Oh god, guys. We might need to talk about all of them. We might need to watch all of them. This is a restorative practice webinar. Let's talk. Okay, I think that the one that makes sense for us to watch next is this gender identity and expression one, just because, you know, it's a relevant topic in the news with what's going on with Disney. What is the gender spectrum and how can we support transgender and non-binary youth in our schools and our communities? Oh, look what it says. They will be joined by student panelists. Well, that's all you really need to say. Let's bring this one up. Student panelists, again, in the Gender Identity and Spectrum Workshop. All right, guys, to part 2, mount that like button, hang in there, go get a drink. It's now 6 o'clock, 6:20 on the East Coast. Cheers to everyone who is out of work. Let's start off our weekends right by making fun of the woke left on the internet. All right, let's go.
We stand against any kind of hatred. And as we move forward in our office, in our work, the Office of Equity in the Burlington School District, we will continue hosting community conversations and giving us an opportunity to really move forward with this work. And again, I really want to thank everybody that helped to organize and put this conversation together. Thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Autumn.
Thank you so much. One thing I'm really excited about for this particular event, we've always had different facilitators, but we have BSD staff here, and that is incredible. So I'm going to turn it over to our co-facilitators, Billy Ray Poley, who is the choral director at BHS, and Assistant Principal Nikki Ellis.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Billy, would you like to
Assistant
start us off
Principal.
with your introduction?
Yes. All right. Hello, everyone. Some of you might know me. Some of you may not. I actually think I'm also going to maybe break this bigger real quickly. But I'm not going to do that right now. So my name is Billy Ray Polai. I am in my 9th year of teaching. I've been at the high school for 7 years now. I'm super involved, obviously, in the music department, but also in the theater program. Opening night for the Mystery of Edwin Drood starts next Wednesday, everyone. So Mystery of Edwin Drood is next Wednesday, so if you can make it, please be there. That's my little plug. When I'm not at school, which is most of the time, you can find me hiking twice, apparently, and biking, and randomly bursting out into song, because that is me. I identify, which we will get into this later in the conversation, but I want to acknowledge it now. I identify as a cisgendered homosexual male. Nikki?
And I will say that I haven't had the privilege of meeting Billy Ray in person yet, but I have really enjoyed getting to know him virtually. My name is Nikki Ellis, and I am the assistant principal at Edmonds Middle School. The students call me AP Ellis since I don't use gendered pronouns in my name. This is my 8th year in education.
The assistant principal is non-binary. Excellent.
Proud restorative practices facilitator, practitioner, and when I'm not at school, I'm a weekend chef. Right now, I moonlight as a sous chef for a local chef, and I'm learning all different cooking techniques. I also run a New England-based surf collective for BIPOC and queer folks who want to start learning to surf. I identify as a transgender, non-binary, queer person. And like Billy said, we'll get a little bit more into that further on in our presentation.
Oh, good. What could possibly go wrong?
My camera, it keeps going in and out. I want to see you all, and I want you to see me too. So just know that, okay? All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is our agenda. We're just going to go over it real quickly, which is introductions. Yay, we just did that. Meeting norms. What is gender identity 101? Student panel, and a wrap up and exit survey. That's what we have planned for this evening.
I wonder if I can make this bigger on the
Nikki's
screen.
Going to talk to us about norms real quick.
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure that we had a couple of really straightforward norms for tonight. There are 4 of them here. The first one is to lean in with an open mind and curiosity. When we talk about gender and we talk about gender being a spectrum, it's a new conversation for lots of people. It's a way of thinking about gender that's very different than what society has taught us previously. So we're hoping that everyone here will be able to approach that with curiosity. We are trying to be cognizant of time. The most important piece of this presentation is the opportunity for our student panelists to speak. So we'll move through this first part as quickly as we possibly can. And then, for our audience members who are asking questions, to be able to make sure to be aware to take space, but also make space and prioritize the voices of our student panelists. And then to just make sure to mute when you're not speaking, otherwise we get some weird feedback going.
All right, so we are going to move on with a quick introduction video, kind of to set the ground of what we're working on today. And we found this video really helpful, and we thought we'd start this way and then really start to dive into the meat of the conversation.
Yeah, and so this is from a gender researcher, historian, activist named Unwoke. You can find Unwoke on Instagram, where they often post about the history of gender and what it means to be gender nonconforming, gender non-binary, and how to look at gender as a spectrum. This video will also talk very briefly about Unwoke's sort of recommendation for how to honor people with transgender identities. So Unwoke goes by the pronouns they, them.
Look, I want to share with the audience something that I thought was very, very beautiful. When I first discovered you on Instagram, I was blown away. I was awestruck by how inviting you were, how educational you were, how compassionate you were. I wanted to ask you
this guy.
A little safe space right now, where I could ask you some questions that I would be nervous to otherwise ask. And if you're willing, I would love for you to honestly just school me, if that's cool with you.
I'm so willing.
Okay.
Bring it on.
I actually wrote them down because I was like, I made a list and I was like, I want to write these down. I want to not miss any. So I feel like there's 2 terms that I get.
I just want to remind everyone while we are watching this that there are student panelists on this webinar, and that's the assistant principal. And the school has gotten students onto this webinar in which they're teaching them about gender identity. Let's just all keep that in mind as this proceeds.
Confused sometimes, and I can't genuinely say that I completely know the difference. Gender non-conforming and gender non-binary.
Sure, absolutely. So if you're non-binary, that means you're neither exclusively a man nor a woman. If you're gender non-conforming, that means you visibly defy society's ideas of what gender should look like. So let me give some examples. You might be a woman, but present as more traditionally masculine. So you're...
Am I gender non-conforming? I was once told, I shit you not, when I first started red pilling, I was told that I was queer not because I'm a lesbian, because I'm not, but like I was told that I was queer because I don't adhere to the traditional feminine stereotypes, and so I was considered queer even though I was straight. And now I'm finding out that I'm gender non-conforming. Do I have that right? Okay. I cannot imagine what a nightmare I would have been had I been taught this when I was in school. Like, learning this as an adult, I have the presence of mind to dismiss it and say these people are insane. But if an educator had taught me this when I was in school, that I was gender non-conforming because I had short hair and wanted to play baseball instead of softball, I would have turned into a fucking nightmare.
You're gender nonconforming. But then there might be someone who is just neither a man nor a woman. That person's non-binary.
And so what is the appropriate time, or is there an appropriate way to ask someone how they identify? Because I'm of the belief that I, of course, want to be respectful to everyone.
I think that it's not necessary for everyone to know your identity unless you're like actual friends or like vibing. Like, we don't go up on the street and just ask cis people, so when did you know that you were cisgender? You know? So what I say is actually what's most important is people's pronouns, less so their identity. So what I ask is just, hey, what are your pronouns?
Are the most important thing.
I love that you said that, because
Most
I feel
important.
like for some irrational reason I can't think of right now, I would be nervous to ask that. But you're saying it's completely fine to say, hi, what are your pronouns? Wow.
In the same way that we ask people their name without assuming their name, we're trying to normalize just asking people their pronouns without assuming their pronouns.
Absolutely. Wow. That is, okay. So now I'm gonna get real. I am not gonna sit here and pretend I am a perfect person. If I were to ever slip up, or if anyone were to slip up and use the wrong pronoun, what is the correct way to apologize or deal with a situation like that?
What often happens when people slip up is they make a whole scene about it and they're like, oh my God, I didn't want to fit. And then it's like, it's not that serious, Felicity, okay? You just need to say, I'm sorry, I'll work on it. I won't do the same mistake again. That's it. If you feel like you need to process how difficult it is for you to remember, don't bring that to a trans and non-binary person. Bring that to someone else that you can process that with. Because people tend to prioritize the integrity of grammar over our mental health. So it's okay for it to be difficult, but it's not okay for you to bring that kind of energy to someone.
You're incredible. That was incredibly helpful. I appreciate you creating the safe space so much. I've learned so much from you. If you want to live a better life, follow Alok on Instagram. Alok, what is your Instagram? Let the people know.
My Instagram is @AlokBMenon. That's BMENON.
Your life will be better. But not only that, check out Alok's latest book called Beyond the Gender Binary. I have read it. And there we go. Promo all day. It's called Beyond the Gender Binary. It is incredible. Make sure you check it out. Thank you so much for joining us, Alok. Well, I genuinely, first I want to give you a virtual hug right here. I know it's COVID and I want to give you a hug.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I won't forget that you were the first.
That's right. When you're up there like Beyonce status, don't forget about me. Okay, bye.
Wow.
All right, now we're going to go into some basic terminology around gender identity and gender expression. And I think that video from Alok was very helpful because there are some folks who are gender nonconforming, there are some folks who are gender non-binary, and there are some folks who are both. I personally identify both as gender nonconforming and gender non-binary, in that I do not feel just female or male, but I feel a mix of that within myself. And I also don't conform to society's standards for masculinity or femininity.
That by the way, that book, I actually got that book in the fall. There's a series of books like that. They're fabulous. Please reach out to me if you have questions what they were. I will send you a picture of the one that I have. All right, and again, we just want to also put the disclaimer that this is a basic level training, okay? We are not going to be going into deep things. This is an overview of what an introduction almost, okay? We're hoping that we can do more of these and we can start to deep dive. But for tonight, again, this is very surface level information that we're presenting. And just to help you with some terminology, just so you're aware of where we're coming from. So here we are. Some terms, 101, which I did have a fancy thing of them flying in, but apparently that didn't work. But I made it snazzy, but it didn't work. I apologize. So some terms that we're going to go over. First, sex assigned at birth. This is the decision made about a person's sex based on the visual appearance of the genitals at birth. So again, what that is referring to is that you come out of the womb and someone in that room says, male, and you are assigned a sex at birth. So that's literally what that means. The biological sex is the person's combination of genitals, chromosomes, and hormones, usually categorized by male or female based on the visual inspection of genitals via ultrasound or at birth. So that's the biological sex, which again is a little bit different than the sex assigned at birth. Nikki, would you mind going into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So, you know, people's gender, their biological sex is a combination of what is mentioned there. But there are also some people who are intersex, meaning they may have a combination of genitals, chromosomes, and hormones that are not exclusively categorized just as male or female. So we talk about gender being a spectrum. Biological sex is also not dichotomous, meaning it doesn't just fit into two distinct categories, as we have often been led to believe throughout science classes in history.
There are some countries also that do not assign sex at birth. I can't think of those at the top of my head. I should have. I know you're like, what are those, Billy, right? I'm terrible. I'm sorry. The week before the musical, I'm so ill prepared. All right, so moving on. Transgender.
He is announcing on the webinar how unprepared he is. And listen, I've done that shit too, man. I remember I gave a webinar about critical race theory literally right as the war in Ukraine was breaking out, and I was so frazzled because like all the shit going on like in my life. So, and I said, I was like, I'm a little frazzled right now because like my husband's country just went to war and it is what it is. So I will be a little bit more gentle on that. I've totally done it. It is understandable. But my frazzling was because of war. Your frazzling was because of a musical. Those are different things.
Person whose gender identity does not match their biological sex assigned at birth. So if they were assigned male, but they identify as female, transgender. Now, some things that people do get confused on is a transgender male boy or a transgender woman girl, because they're like, wait, you're transgender. Now there's a subcategory of, I'm a transgender boy who's a person who is assigned female at birth, but I identify as male. And it's the opposite with a transgender woman who identifies assigned male at birth, but identifies as female. So again, that sometimes can trip people up because it almost sounds like it could be reverse, but that is that. And then transgender, non-conforming or non-binary, which we've talked about a little bit already, is a person assigned male or female at birth who identifies outside the dichotomy of two genders, meaning they're like, no, I'm not male, I'm not female, I do not identify with these. Again, if you have questions at this point, please put them in the chat and we can answer if you have anything, okay?
I just want to hear what the students have to say. I want to hear what the students have to say. Bring in the students.
So next we have the second part of some basic terms, okay? First, cisgendered, which is what I referred to as we started this meeting, and it's someone who identifies with gender assigned at birth. So I was born a male, I identify as male. Again, you'll notice that there's nothing about right now sexuality, right? Gender and sexuality are very, very different. And so we want to make sure we acknowledge that like being cisgendered and being homosexual is not, they're two different things. So we want to make sure that that is clear. Nikki, would you like to continue with the non-binary?
Sure. So someone who is non-binary, just as we sort of referenced before, non-binary is underneath of the umbrella term of transgender. And someone who is non-binary does not identify exclusively as male or female. They may identify as both male and female or neither. And another identity that falls under the umbrella of transgender is gender fluid. Uh-oh,
Al Bellucci, I know your son. Can you have him mute your computer, please?
All right. Okay, so another identity underneath of the umbrella of transgender is gender fluid. Which means that a person's gender identity or expression can also shift between masculine and feminine, Someone who is pangender identifies as
Pangender?
all genders.
What?
Not necessarily at the
Wait,
same time.
what? I've never heard of this term before. Someone could identify as all genders? What? Where did this come from? Okay, so on this slide, they've got cisgender, someone who identifies with gender assigned at birth, non-binary, a person who does not identify exclusively as male or female, may identify as both or neither. So apparently a non-binary person can also be both a man and a woman at the same time, but also neither at the same time. Gender fluid, a person whose gender identity or expression shifts between masculine and feminine. Pangender, a person who identifies as all genders. I wonder if that includes bog gender. Let's keep going.
Time. Two-spirit is a term used exclusively by Native and Indigenous peoples to indicate that they embody both masculine and feminine spirits. And someone who is agender defines themselves as having no gender. So the term transgender, like I said, is an umbrella with multiple identities encompassed underneath of it. So transgender male, transgender female, transgender non-conforming or non-binary, transgender gender fluid, pangender, agender. There's a whole range.
There's a whole range, and really we chose what we thought would be a good intro 101 terms. I mean, the list, it's a massive list.
I want to know how many genders they think there are.
Is huge. And so we wanted to present where you kind of also...
I want to know specifically how many different genders these people think there are. If someone is pangender, they're identifying as all of them. How many do they think there are?
So with what we're seeing, what I know that I'm seeing in the classroom as well, as you know, we have at the high school a beautiful amount of students who identify in all different ways. And we kind of just like, okay, what is the most common that community members might be hearing? But these are not exclusive. There's so many more. Just we're putting that out there, okay?
Yeah, and I want to shout out to our middle school YPAR group at EMS. They've been really pushing the district to honor the different genders, which represent our students when they collect data. And so that is a conversation that EMS...
Oh, no, Incognito, you are wrong. Incognito says non-binary can't be transgendered per their terms. No. They say a person who does not identify exclusively as male or female and may actually identify as both or neither.
Students have brought to the district level.
They just made them up. That's all they did.
So those are the terms, some terms we were going to go over today. We're moving on to now gender identity versus gender expression. So gender identity, female, girl, woman, male, boy, man, other genders. It's how a person experiences their gender in their heart, body, and soul. So it is truly how the person feels their gender is. It has nothing to do with biological sex. It is all about how that person identifies. Versus gender expression, which is a person's outward gender presentation, usually comprised of personal style. Clothing, hairstyle, makeup, jewelry, and how they want the world to see them. I am gender expression is masculine. And Nikki.
And my gender expression is also masculine.
So there we go. Now, some of
these people are walking stereotypes, is what they are.
Flyer before. I love this. This is
I want the unicorn. I want the unicorn.
The gender unicorn. Ta-da! Okay, I don't know if you all have seen this.
This
before,
shit is
but
crazy.
Yes, all of the spirit fingers for the gender unicorn. This is a fabulous, fabulous tool that we use in educational settings to talk about gender identity and gender expression. So it's just, it's fabulous. So again, the blue is representing the gender identity. The green, we're talking about gender expression. sex assigned at birth, physically attracted to, emotionally attracted to. There's a whole series on the gender unicorn and lessons that can be used to go over it. I learned about it in a training I went to this fall, and 2 years ago I was in it as well. This is a fabulous tool, especially for visual learners, right? For visual learners. I am a huge visual person. I don't do well with stand and lecture. Give me pictures, please.
The gender unicorn
So,
has
Nikki,
a piece
have
of
you
candy
used
as
this in
its
class
junk.
before,
Hang on,
or
I
in
just
a lesson setting?
I just want to point out, some people might say this is DNA, but and I understand that argument. The gender unicorn has a piece of candy as its junk. That looks like a piece of candy. I understand people say it's DNA. I got it. But that looks like a piece of candy. Children are going to think that's a piece of candy. I'm just saying.
So I have used it both in a lesson as a teacher, but also with our staff at EMS. Earlier this year, we did a training where
she just admitted that she has used the gender unicorn is part of her lessons that she's taught as a teacher. Just said she taught it to kids. Just say. Oh, I don't know. I don't know what. Okay, I may be using completely the wrong pronouns. They just said they taught it to kids. Whatever.
The gender unicorn was a major piece that we talked about to support staff members to continue to learn and understand our students' identities when it comes to gender.
I think my camera might have officially died so I hope you love seeing my face. Now you just can see me in my little picture. So at this point, we have gone over kind of what we were going to present on this basic level of introduction. So now we're at the point where we have questions for student panelists or the adult facilitators. At this point, you can post your questions in the chat. And students can pick up ones that they would like to answer.
Students.
What we mean by this is that, is there anything you'd like to ask us in terms of like experiences, or, you know, as long as we're feeling comfortable, things that you would want to know about more or hear more about?
And for our student panelists who are with us, you can choose to pick up and answer any of the questions that come into the chat that you feel comfortable responding to. If you would like to share your pronouns as you introduce yourself, you are so welcome to, but also you are not required to do so. So we're lucky that we have a number of students who have joined us this evening, both from middle school and high school, to talk about their experiences with gender as well. So if you have a question, now is the time that you can feel free to post that question in the chat. And students and perhaps Billy and I will do our best to respond to some of those.
Nikki and Billy Ray, can we give a chance to for the students to introduce themselves?
Yes.
And students, you know, this is part of our virtual equity workshops to involve students at every step of the way. And I always say, we want you to be most comfortable. We'd love to see your face, but you're welcome to keep your cameras on.
They're encouraging the students to be live on the internet. Oh, great. Oh, great.
You can choose to share your pronouns or anything about you that you'd like. But I would just like to do a little shout out so that we know they're here. So Aubrey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Aubrey. I'm in 7th grade. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I go to Edmonds Middle School.
Thank you for being here, Aubrey. How about Batula?
Hi, my name's Batula. I use she, her, hers pronouns. And I go to BHS.
Thanks, Batula. How about Delia?
Hi, I'm Delia. I use she, her pronouns, and I go to Hunt Middle School.
Middle school.
Thanks, Delia.
Middle
and
school.
How about Harper and Sophie?
Hi, I'm Harper. I use she, her pronouns. I'm in 7th grade and I go to Hunt.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I currently use she, her pronouns, and I'm in 7th grade at Hunt.
I currently use she, her pronouns in the 7th grade.
Thanks for being here. Naima.
My name is Naima, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from Edmonds, 7th grade.
They're all in 7th grade.
There's
That's
a couple other
12
students
years
here,
old.
but I'm not sure if you
12.
want to unmute and introduce yourself. I think Zelda's here too. Zelda, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Zelda. I go by he, they pronouns, and I go to Hunt Middle School.
And if I missed anyone, there are a lot of people on this call. Feel free to unmute or use the chat to introduce yourselves. Okay, turn it back to our facilitators.
I feel
for
so
the
uncomfortable
questions
watching
and
this. Hang on.
All right, we have a question.
Does anyone else just feel like I actually feel really uncomfortable watching this? This truly to me feels like we're watching brainwashing. We're watching child abuse. That's what this feels like to me. And I know I like to joke around. I didn't realize when I picked these presentations today that there were going to be children in them. I didn't realize it. I didn't look that much into it. But I actually feel like sick watching this. But I think it's important that we do watch it because this is what is going on in schools every single day. And so if we as adults feel comfortable watching this, can you imagine how those kids feel?
From one of our lovely school counselors in the chat. Hi, Miss Brady. Miss Brady asks, whenever someone misgenders someone near me, I never correct them until I ask that person if it is okay. Is that how I should handle it, or should I immediately correct them? And I'm going to open the door for our student panelists to weigh in here with perspectives about this question. And I have really good wait time because I work in education.
They're pressuring the students into speaking.
Just because you work in education doesn't mean you have a good wait time. I'm slowly dying over here. All right, does anyone? Come on, kiddos. We got this. Here we go.
In the chat?
The question is in the chat, yes. And if you would like to answer.
That drama teacher just pressured students into talking, 12-year-old students into talking about their gender. Come on, kiddos. I don't have patience. We don't have all night. Come on, kids. Let's hear about your gender identity. Are you fucking kidding me?
Answer it either in the chat or out loud. Either of those ways are greatly appreciated.
I feel like I want that student to do it themselves because it's better to hear it from someone that you affected instead of a teacher that's telling you something. It's better to listen to the person that you hurt than an actual person that was outside of the conversation. But I think it's good to immediately handle the situation yourself, but it's also good to let someone else do their own thing.
Any other students want to weigh in with their perspectives?
I agree with Naima.
Me too.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Me too.
They just don't have anything to say.
I would say for me personally,
She's
when
not gonna lead
someone
them.
misgenders me, I don't always feel comfortable correcting them in the moment. But I personally do feel supported when my cisgendered peers and colleagues are able to help make that correction.
Yeah. Patrice is making a great point here. Patrice says, Poor kid doesn't know what the adults want, so they said both sides. We saw this in the last webinar too. The kids weren't answering real. The kids were just trying to please the adults. That's all that they were doing.
If we have done that, if there's no more, we'll go to the next question, which is from Martine. I'm wondering if our BSD students generally feel seen, feel supported, and if they feel reflected in the learning and curriculum. So students, this question was directed towards you. So I'm hoping that you all can, again, I'll read it again. I'm wondering if our BSD students generally feel seen, feel supported, and if they feel reflected in the learning and curriculum. And again, students, feel free to unmute yourselves and respond.
I kind of don't understand the question, what the question is asking.
So what the question is asking is, at BHS, but I'll speak for BHS, or at whatever school you are in, do you feel as though that your identity is seen and respected, and that you are learning about, I'm assuming, again, Martine, please correct me if I'm saying this wrong, if you are learning about these issues in your classrooms outside of, health class even, in English, in math, in music, are these things that are talked about in the curriculum? I'm giving you a thumbs up, Martine.
I feel respected with my gender, but I definitely think that we should talk about it more outside and like more throughout different classes during the day.
I feel like I feel like the only time teachers really talk about gender, like anything related to it, is like when a student like requests that it happens because something happened to them. But other than that, I think just health class is like the only time we actually talk about it.
I think maybe if we learned more about like gender and maybe like even like the history behind some like I don't really know how to explain it, but like just learn more about the history behind like I'm not really sure, just like the history in like maybe like in history class, and talk more about gender and stuff like that in not just health class but in other classes too.
Yeah, I think that we don't really talk about it, like especially if we're learning about history or whatever. You don't hear any of that unless a student actually like brings it up. Like I do that a lot. Like I'm like, can we talk about anyone like this? And then a lot of teachers are pretty like supportive, but some of them just like ignore it or say there's no time or whatever.
Like dismiss it.
Yeah, dismiss it.
That is the mother. You guys were right. That is the mother, I think. The mother is coaching that fucking kid.
And there was a follow-up question for our student panelists to add on to that. Do you feel like young kids feel seen and supported as much in elementary school as they do in middle and high school?
I think especially now, like we're learning a lot more about like gender and your identity and how to express yourself more. We haven't, especially when I was younger, in elementary school they didn't really teach us much about that. We weren't really told like that identity is going to be a big part in our lives. But I think especially modern day, like now, they're showing it a lot more in the classrooms, and they're especially more welcoming, I think.
Megan Curley, are you in a rainstorm?
I think it's pouring over there.
Are you okay?
Sorry, I don't know what just happened. I don't know why I wasn't on mute. I'm actually cooking steak. It's sizzling.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm embarrassed. Okay, bye.
No, it's okay. It happens. This is a workshop built around everyone's busy lives. So we will take you in whatever form you show up to this workshop.
And I expect some of that steak tomorrow at school as forgiveness. Thank you so much.
To answer that question, so I'm in middle school and I have a younger sibling in 4th grade, and not 100% sure what their pronouns are, but right now, so my sibling,
4th grade. 4th grade. That's 9 years old.
I went to the same elementary school and I felt pretty supported, and I actually, I came out in 5th grade with the help of my guidance counselor.
What?
And they were really.
Wait. What? Let's rewind a little bit.
To this workshop.
And I expect some of that steak tomorrow at school as forgiveness. Thank you so much.
To answer that question, so I'm in middle school and I have a younger sibling in 4th grade, and not 100% sure what their pronouns are, right now, so my sibling, I went to the same elementary school and I felt pretty supported, and I actually, I came out in 5th grade with the help of my guidance counselor. And they were really supportive. They had we had a whole unit with the guidance counselor just teaching us about stuff. And currently at middle school, there's less education about it. We talked about it in health class, and our health teacher, well, she's not there right now, but she's amazing, and she brought up a lot of good stuff. And health class is good. There's also an LGBTQ space, there's lunches on Friday or something. But I'm not doing them because it's lunch is the only time I get to see my friends, and I feel like a lot of other kids feel that way, so that's why they're not doing it. Yeah, Pride Panther. And there's also Social Justice Club, which is where me and Harper just came from, and Delia. But there's not support in schools. You can definitely talk to the guidance counselors and they're supportive, but there's no specific education that makes you feel seen, at least at our school. I don't know about Edmonds.
Kind of building off of that, I think especially in elementary school, you're taught more about your identity, it's more welcoming, and then as you get older in the higher grades, it's not talked about as much anymore. And
I'm gonna agree with Batula and Harper. We do learn about our identities and stuff in middle school, but it's usually in a time where it's our personal time, in school when we have the only time we get to socialize with our friends. It's usually the time they take to teach us that, and it's not really part of the day where we're learning
Just so you guys know, I just shot a message to Lindsay and Rufo and Corey DeAngelis, basically asking if anyone has heard of anything else coming out of this school district, because there may be additional stuff that we don't that they know about that we don't have access to, and so we'll see. But holy shit, we may have stumbled on the mother lode.
Classes are starting. It's more in the day where it's our personal time, and it'd be
Any other student panelists want to weigh in on that question?
Thank you for that question and the follow-up. That was fabulous. So thank you. And student panelists, thank you. If there's any more, please speak.
We have time for more questions. If you have one, please don't hesitate to ask. Oh, here we go. We got one. Thanks, Kim. Middle school seems to be a common time when students come out as a different gender or with new pronouns. Is that when most commonly kids discover this about themselves, or more so about when they have the courage to let others know about it? That is a really good question.
I think middle school is definitely a time where you start expressing yourself and start figuring out your own way. And I think that's sort of probably a time when most people come out because they're starting to understand themselves more. They're starting to get to know themselves. So
I definitely feel like middle school is a time when like kids are like figuring out like who they are. Like that was the same for me. I really figured out who I was in middle school.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I came out in 5th grade, and like, so definitely like, and I'm on the older side of kids, but like right before like 11, 12 to like, I don't know, your teenage years is definitely like a time where you find yourself. And also at the middle schools, here it's all the elementary schools are like combining, so there's a more kids, and there's definitely more like types of kids and stuff. So I just think there's like
a lot more room for expression.
Like
mother coaching, mother coaching, mother coaching.
You might find like you and different like genders and stuff.
I knew that I was different when I was 4 years old, but I didn't have the language to explain that difference in myself until I was in my 20s. Because when I was in school, there was no discussion around gender. And you know, I think becoming a more common piece of our community and our culture and our society. And so there's visibility that there wasn't before. And I think that that visibility is really important. And as an assistant principal who identifies this way, students come talk to me about being transgender all the time. And I didn't realize that it would be an entry point to relationships with so many different students. But it has helped me to understand why visibility, folks who look like and have experiences like our students are so important.
I was also going to bounce off that real quickly and then.
The assistant principal just said that being transgendered has opened the door to students coming and asking her about it and forming relationships with those students. As the assistant fucking principal.
I want to go to this question, and that again, I identify as a cisgendered person, but I do identify as like a homosexual. And I, you know, being the choir teacher, I see students for up to 4 years, and I create an amazing bond with them. And usually, once they hit my senior choir, even in their freshman choirs, I will tell them the story of why I couldn't come out in high school because of a not safe home. And I always said that something that I've always wanted to do as a teacher was create a safe environment for anyone, because I know what it's like to not feel safe at home. And again, one of the reasons I became a music teacher, because I found the music wing to be my home. But we, you know, again, like Vivi Ellis said, just sharing your own story, if you're comfortable with that, means so much to what I've seen with our students. It's huge. It's huge. And you don't even realize it. So, stories my Edmonds Middle School GSA students tell me about gender identity and not sexual orientation are about confidently knowing they were different in early elementary school, but they didn't share it or tried to and didn't get support.
I can't even. Peter says, this proves all the groomer talk right. Early teens/preteens is a confusing time, always because of insane hormones. Deciding you are trans or homosexual or anything else is preemptive and harmful. I just want to remind everyone that Pete Buttigieg did not come out of the closet until he was in his 30s. He did it in his time. Why are guidance counselors helping students to come out of the closet in 5th fucking grade? You are 10 years old in 5th grade. You don't know shit about shit. You haven't even really fucking started puberty yet. Why are guidance counselors and assistant principals encouraging students to come out in 5th grade?
Supported. So with that, I think that the first question we want to ask is students, what are your thoughts on this? Like, I think in elementary school, were you saying generally speaking it was more supportive or less supportive? You can rephrase that.
Is this another question or is this the same question?
It's a similar question. It's similar.
I would like to say that elementary school is a bit more inviting, a bit more open-minded than middle school is, because like at elementary school is just like kids learning and stuff, so it's not really that complicated. But when you get to middle school, there's more people that look like you but also are completely different from you, and so it's easier to find yourself when there's more of a community than you had in elementary school, because everyone's almost the same because they were kids and not very mature. I'm not saying middle schools are very mature. They are, but like not really. And there's more of a community there because there's like people that look like you and act like you and have the same similarities as you, so it's easier to come out.
We have another question, another couple questions in the chat. Very exciting. 3 came in, or here we go. 2 came in at the same time. One of those questions is, what are some more ways, I think for educators from this person, but also from families, that we can support students who are either very confident in their gender and know who they are, or who are exploring their gender?
For me, it was like I didn't really want to like talk about it a lot, and my parents really respected that when I like kind of told them about it, and I really like that because I didn't really want to talk about it a whole lot aside from like telling them.
Panelists, any other ways that educators and families, and really just community in general, can be more supportive of students who either know their gender or who are exploring their gender in school? And
also not like overloading them with questions.
Oh no. We certainly shouldn't ask students questions when they're coming out as trans in the 5th grade. And I understand that this is coming from a student who has been brainwashed by their teachers, and I'm sorry about that. But I'm sorry. It is the job of parents to ask fucking questions when these things come up. I would think that it would be the responsible thing to do to ask many questions over many years and having many series of conversations rather than just like allowing a guidance counselor to groom someone into being fucking trans and just being like, okay.
I think it was kind of already said, but when that person does come out, I mean, like if they don't want to talk about it, give them time, and then, yeah.
Something really amazing that I've noticed about kids is that when kids misgender someone, they are very quick to just make a correction and go about their day. And I've noticed that adults sometimes struggle more with the discomfort of knowing they made a mistake and fixating on their mistake rather than just being able to admit that they made a mistake and fixing that mistake in order to move forward. And so that's one way that kids really support adults in our community. Again, is that they don't blink an eye. When they learn someone's gender, they honor it. And if they misgender someone, they're very, very good at just making the correction. And I think that is something that our society has taught adults is this fear around making mistakes, and this fear of things that might be unknown or different. And kids aren't yet affected by that because they're still able to explore. And I wish that that same mentality was one that adults could have the ability to carry with them, because I think, you know, as a trans person, it does get really tiresome in conversations where I'm being misgendered and I'm carrying the discomfort of another adult for their mistake, and sort of have to take the burden of the discomfort of that. And again, I think kids do a really miraculous job of not doing that.
All right, so the next question we have is, did we talk about what recommendations? Did we do that? I think we did do that.
I think we maybe did, but we should maybe open it up again in case.
Yeah, let's open it up again one more time. What recommendations do you have to improve BSD to lift up and support students and staff in the LGBT community? And we can kind of follow that with a action step from Sparks. Love a good action step. What are the action steps BSD can take to do this work with students? Students, what do you think you would want your teachers to know in terms of really anything about these topics? Is there something you think that would be super important, top 3 things that they should walk away with knowing?
I feel like we should know how many students in our community actually know about genders and sexualities and how people define themselves, instead of just like thinking that kids actually know those things.
I agree with Naima, because just a few years ago, because we didn't talk about it, I didn't know many genders. So when some people said their gender, I didn't really understand them.
Don't assume somebody's gender. Don't forget to like ask them. And a lot of teachers are really good about this.
Using gendered language.
Mm-hmm.
The not assuming of that if someone that's also non-binary, that's the person that's also binary, are the same kind of person. They're not. They're completely different, and they have their own like unique, personality. They're not like the same person just because they have the same sexuality or gender.
Those were all wonderfully stated and very useful ways in which we can continue to lift up and support students and staff in our district. Billy, do you have anything to add on that question?
I think the students did a fabulous job, and I think, yes, thank you so much for those answers, because that's real, and we're here because of you, and just like acknowledge that, like, we are here because of you. It sounds like students really want gender nonconforming people included in all content areas. Should we be focused on providing resources and training to core content teachers so they can include it? I also would argue I'm going to say it because I can. I hate the word core and specials and fine arts. Like, I am a music teacher. I am not a special. So I think it should be all teachers should be provided resources, training content, for that they can be included in it, not just the core content teachers. And I also want to echo what the students were saying about K through 5 guidance counselors, K through 5, shout out to you. Because all the time in high school, they talk about lessons that they had with their K through 5 guidance counselor. So bravo, thank you so much. I think that, yeah, I've been talking a lot and I don't want to keep talking. So I just think it's wonderful that this conversation is happening, and that hopefully we can get some steps. And I do think that training, I think even, again, Sparks and Autumn, I think that even VP Ellis and I could expand this in a certain way and present it to schools for faculty. Because I'm assuming even something like this, a lot of our faculty don't have that vocabulary.
If I could just jump in for a sec, I hope this is the beginning of these conversations, and just to start, we have a lot of work to do in our district. And we're not going to be able to do this work, Billy Ray and AP Ellis, without you all and students. So we are committed to doing this work, and we hope, again, that this is only the beginning of these conversations. I really want to thank you all, and our students especially, for being so bold and courageous to participate in this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. And I think to community members who are here, like we are here as the adults also to support you and answer questions that you may have and may be hesitant to ask your child, or maybe, you know, you just want to do some more learning. And I think that's another blessing of visibility. And I encourage you to reach out if you have questions or you want resources or support, because sometimes it's burdensome on the child to take on the stress of the parent or the guardian as they're, you know, finding out who they are themselves. And so that's why there are folks in the community who have lived through the experience that some kids are going through, and we're happy to be here and support.
She is encouraging children to go to them so that they don't inflict the stress on their parents. The stress on the parents may be too much. So just go to the assistant principal and to the counselors at the school so you don't bother mommy and daddy.
Support you in that.
Yes, I echo all of that. A lot of you know where I am, and I've been in the area for a while, so please always feel free to reach out. I'm more than willing to support in any way, shape, or form.
And we're coming close to the end of our time here. Autumn, is there an exit survey that you're hoping that folks who joined us for this workshop would take?
I don't have a survey put together.
Okay.
But I have a couple of announcements I'd love to make, just to shout out and let people know how they can reach out. One is the Burlington School District, new this year, has established an LGBTQ plus task force, and AP Ellis and Billy Ray are part of that, as are many students and community members. And so we're really, really, really hoping for actionable steps that will come out of this task force. So please do reach out with your thoughts and recommendations. I'm going to pop a email address in the chat. equity@bsdvt.org is the easiest way to reach us. And additionally, we have a pilot program happening at Sustainability Academy and have hired Alex Ryder as a new LGBTQ advocacy coordinator. And that's really to look at Sustainability Academy as a pilot school to really examine what would be best practices in our elementary schools and setting up a GSA affinity space. We're hoping that the other elementary schools can learn from that as well. So I wanted to say a couple of announcements.
They're looking into setting up gay-straight alliance groups in elementary schools. I don't have a problem with gay-straight alliance groups. I really don't. But I do have a problem with these people running the groups in elementary school.
About that. And also just give a huge, genuine thank you to our facilitators, AP Ellis and Billy Ray Poley, and our student panelists. I just love hearing your voices. This work is all about students. That's what education is, and education is power, as we started with this. So I hope people spread the word and that this continues.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
All right. I'm not normally this pissed at the end of happy hour. This is probably, I think someone said in the chat earlier. Yes, I believe it was Peter. Peter says, quiet Karlyn is truly angry Karlyn. And then he followed up with, the seed is real. Yes. I am probably more angry right now than after any other happy hour in the history of happy hours. And guys, as a reminder, we just watched 2 of these presentations. We just watched 2 of them. There are many other equity presentations in the Burlington School District that we haven't gotten into yet. And yes, they do have student facilitators. So here's my plan. I'm going to be making some clips. I'm going to be going through some of the other presentations. I'm going to spend a little time on this here website because like I have nothing else to do in my life. Now I got to investigate the Burlington fucking school district. I have documents from the parent company CVS sitting on my computer. I have documents from FEMA sitting on my computer right now. What am I doing? I'm going to investigate the Burlington school district. And I'm going to see what other crazy shit they have out in the public. I am livid about what we just watched. There are no words. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put some clips together. If anyone that is involved in the Unwoke Army would like to help me, I will post this in the Discord. And you know, if you, again, no pressure. I know we've got a bunch of people who are doing the Unwoke Army stuff with me. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. I'm going to post it in the Discord. If you would like to take a look around, please feel free to. I think this can be a group effort. Jess, I'm going to right now. So what I can do is I've already downloaded the 2 videos that we watched from YouTube. So I have them on my computer right now. I will be downloading the rest of the videos tonight, just to have them. Now, all of this, we need to look around their YouTube channel too, guys. They've got a whole fucking YouTube channel. Hang on. They've got a whole YouTube channel with an equity playlist. They've got the 2021 workshops up here too. Equity playlist number 2. They've got all sorts of shit on their YouTube channel. You guys can't see it. Here it is. Here's our community conversations equity playlist. They've got that up there. They've got the workshops from 2021 up there. They've got all this stuff. Everything that the Burlington School District right now is doing is happening in public. We've got Metastep, who lives in Vermont. So let's all get investigating into the Burlington School District, and anyone who's not officially in the Unwoke Army that you want to help, send me a note through drkarlyn.com/contact. I will get you involved, if you want to help out with this too. No, we're gonna do the research ourselves. You want to know why? Because the reporter for the Daily Wire that normally investigates this stuff, who used to talk to me, is now no longer talking to me because he works for the Daily fucking Wire. So we're gonna do it ourselves. Fuck them. And my goal is I would like to start publishing about this on my Substack next week. I want clips up. I want an article documenting what they're doing. I'm happy to do it on my own, but I will absolutely credit anyone who wants to be credited that helps out with this. I am livid. I am fucking livid. So I'm going to go get started working on that. I'm going to start working on the clips. You know, part of me is a little regretful that this wasn't a happy hour, because happy hour is usually kind of fun. We usually rail on woke training for a little while, and we just happened to today stumble on something that's really wrong. And this is just from this is from a month ago. This is not even that long ago. So let's expose these fuckers. Let's do it. But guys, that is all we have for happy hour today, because I got to go do some work. Again, we do these every Friday on youtube.com/actively unwoke. If you would like to support the work I'm doing, because this, guys, honestly, this is really like what needs to be supported, is freeing up my time to go through and make clips of these videos, to go through and investigate what's going on, to write the fucking article, to get it out there, to make sure I'm doing everything I can to make sure as many people know about this shit as possible. All of that takes time, and it takes energy. And when I'm doing that stuff, I can't do other things that I need to do. So it's like I can only do it when people become members of my locals, when you guys decide to support the work I'm doing. If you would like to support it, please head over to kb.locals.com/support. Become a member on my locals today for $5 a month. You can become a member for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. This is now more important than ever. I would really like to bring 100 new members into my locals by my birthday, which is on April 12th. So if you appreciated what we discovered here today, please consider supporting the work I'm doing. This is what makes it possible. I cannot emphasize this enough, guys. You know, it just is what it is. If I do not have the support to do this, then I need to go do organizational psychology stuff to pay my bills. That is the reality of the situation. And so if you value what I'm trying to do, please help me out. $5 a month to join the community. It may not mean a lot to you, but it does mean a lot to me, because it all adds up after a while. And I really, really appreciate it. And the other thing you can do is pre-order my book, Actively Unwoke. It is available on Amazon. It says it's coming out on April 26th, but I just got word from my publisher right before we started today that because of supply chain issues and staffing issues at the printer, they're going to have to delay it for 2 weeks. I'm not happy about it. I'm sorry, but I can't do anything about it. All we can do is put our energy into fighting back, and you know, the book's going to come out when it comes out, and it's a great book. I'm really proud of it. It is the ultimate guide for fighting back against woke insanity in your life. And if you want to pre-order it now, the hardcover, the audiobook, the Kindle version, that is available on Amazon. If you don't want to buy from Amazon, that's cool. You can go to activelyunwoke.com. And there are non-Amazon pre-order options that you can avail yourselves of. Autograph copies will be coming soon as well. And so those are going to be available too. But guys, I'm going to go start making some clips. I will post in the Unwoke Army Discord server about all of this stuff, so that anyone who wants to chip in can get started. And if you are not currently in the Unwoke Army, but you're interested in helping out, please reach out to me through drkarlyn.com/contact. And you know what? All hands on deck, man. I will add you to the Unwoke Army. You can join us. We're doing a lot of cool stuff. We're building a knowledge base. People are fighting back in their own ways. We're coordinating with each other. The Unwoke Army is a decentralized initiative. So I'm not giving orders. I'm not telling anyone what to do, but we all come together when there is work that needs to be done. And this seems like it might be our first big project. All right, guys, I'm going to go get started. Please mount that like button for me on the way out the door. Please make sure you subscribe to Actively Unwoke on YouTube if you're not subscribed already, or whatever platform you're watching on, whether that be Odyssey or Rockfin or Rumble or even Getter. Please make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button, whatever the case may be. All right, guys, take care. Have a good Friday. It never ends. We'll see.